So the message for today is that God can use even stupid Christians. Now, we might consider ourselves in that category.
Well, what had happened was,
And have you ever said that? It's like, well, what had happened was when you're about to explain something that you did that was dumb. Well, what had happened was, and who knows who this is? Samson. It's supposed to be Samson. Actually, this is Samson. He was the first person ever photographed in the Bible. Cameras back then, yeah. This is the real life him. So anyway, in his brief but spectacular life, Samson made 10 stupid decisions, all of which brought reproach upon Yahweh. So 10 stupid decisions. Nevertheless, Yahweh was able to use Samson's one wise decision to prove that he can use ordinary people to do extraordinary things. All of us are ordinary people, but he can do extraordinary things through us. So again, if we're feeling like, hey, I've made so many stupid decisions in my life, so what? Just keep on moving. God's not done with us. Continue to empty ourselves and pray that God can help us to make at least one wise decision, all right? And hopefully very, very, very many wise decisions. All right, so the background, this is going to be in the book of Judges. Book of Judges, and we're turning to chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. This is the book of Judges, chapter 13, and verses 1 through 5. And the background says the sons of Israel did evil again in the sight of Yahweh. So Yahweh delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. This is the situation. Every time Israel did something good, they come back and they forget about God after God had delivered them. Then something bad would happen. So they needed another deliverer. And this time they did stupid stuff. So God delivered them into the hands of the Philistines. Again, in verse 2, there was a man of the family of the Danites whose name was Manoah. His wife was barren. The angel of Yahweh appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, now you are barren, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Please take heed not to drink wine nor strong drink, and do not eat any unclean thing. Truly you shall conceive and bear a son. He repeats this, even though she's barren, to say, listen, have faith, because I can do the impossible. So truly you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head. This is the secret to his success, so to speak. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to Elohim from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. And now Judges chapter 13, verses 24 through 25. This is Judges chapter 13 and verses 24 through 25. And we're going to get back to that point where it says that he began to deliver Israel from the Philistines. So in time, the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. As the child grew, Yahweh blessed him. So think about that for a second. Samson is growing up, and it says in scripture, as the child grew, Yahweh blessed him. And the spirit of Yahweh began to move him at times in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtal. So he's from the tribe of Israel, one of the tribes of Israel, Dan. So I have a couple of questions. What might some of the blessings be? Because it says, as the child grew, Yahweh blessed him. So what do you think some of the blessings are? And this is open for anybody. What do you think some of the blessings are that Yahweh blessed Samson with? His strength, good health, wisdom,
beat up all the bullies.
beat up all the bullies. I would not say wisdom. I would not say wisdom. That's not one of them. But strength to gain victory in battles, right? And so he had remarkable strength, and whenever he went out to do something, he gained victories. Okay, so that's what some of the blessings might be. Whoops, sorry about that. Yeah. So what did the spirit of Yahweh move Samson to do? That's another question. What did the Spirit of Yahweh moved Samson to do? Can you think of anything that the Spirit of Yahweh moved Samson to do? Something specifically that he moved Samson to do?
Be a judge.
Be a judge. Okay, very good. He moved him to be a judge over Israel. Very, very good. Obviously, the Spirit of Yahweh did not move Samson to sin. Do we all agree with that? Yes, he never moved him to sin. So as we go through the story, it can be a little bit hard to parse out what's happening, but we know the Spirit of Yahweh never moved Samson to sin, because God never moves anybody to sin. God never tempts anybody to sin. Okay, so whatever the Spirit of Yahweh moved Samson to do, it wasn't to sin, and we're going to see in the story. So obviously the spirit of Samson moved himself to make some stupid decisions. So what we see is the same thing that we have with ourselves. We're growing in grace and knowledge, but we still make mistakes because God's not finished with us, right? And sometimes it's like, oh, God is moving me to do such and such. Well, not really. That's you moving yourself to do it. Don't blame it on the spirit of Elohim. We're just making some stupid decisions, but that's okay because we have a merciful, very patient, very loving Father and elder brother, Savior, and Lord. So now let's look at Samson's 10 stupid decisions. All right. Stupid decision number 1. This is in Judges chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. Samson went down to Timnath and saw a Philistine woman. He told his parents to get the Philistine woman for him to be his wife. But his parents replied, "Is there no woman among our people that you go take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines?" But Samson said to his father, "Get her for me, for she pleases me very much." I don't want to hear that. I just want this woman. Well, that's a stupid decision. Why is that a stupid decision? Why was going to marry this Philistine, uncircumcised Philistine woman, why was that a stupid decision? Unequally yoked, right. We should never be unequally yoked. Now, we remember about Boaz, who was an Israelite, and Ruth, who was a Moabite. God is not against interracial, inter-ethnic, inter-tribal marriage. It is simply, he does not want people to be unequally yoked. And so if this Philistine woman followed Yahweh, that would be no problem. But she obviously was not following Yahweh. So that is the correct answer. Israelites were expressly forbidden to marry Gentiles due to the danger of apostasy and idolatry. And you can check that out in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 4. So that was stupid decision number 1, as he married somebody with whom he was unequally yoked. Now in verse 4 it says, but his parents did not know that it was from Yahweh. Now remember, we just got finished saying Yahweh never moves somebody to sin. So how could this be from Yahweh? And that's just the question, because he sinned. So how could this be from Yahweh?
He was going to use it.
Because he was going to use it. What that means is God can use even our stupid decisions. Who is the God of this world? Satan the devil. Is God using Satan the devil? Yeah, in many ways. He uses Satan the devil. He's left him here as the God of this world. So God can use even our stupid decisions to work out his plan. So his parents did not know that it was from Yahweh, that he was looking for an occasion against the Philistines since they ruled over Israel. Does Yahweh lead people to transgress his own commandments? In James chapter 1, verse 13, it says, God tempts no one to evil. So the answer we know is no. God will capitalize on a person's desire, intent to do evil in order for God's ultimate will to be done. And you remember the story also about, I think it was Isaiah, who was, or somebody was called, and this was King Ahab, and King Ahab wanted the prophets to say something. All of his prophets did lie to him and say, yeah, go into battle, blah, blah, blah. And then God said, well, I'm going to send you one of my prophets. And this prophet was a lying prophet sent to deceive Ahab, and Ahab did go into battle. So you remember, God can use even stupid decisions. That's stupid decision number one, being unequally yoked with somebody who's unconverted. All right, stupid decision number two. This Judges chapter 14, verses 5 through 9. Stupid decision number two, Judges chapter 14, verses 5 through 9. Samson and his parents went down to Timnath and came to a vineyard. There a young lion roared at Samson. That's when the spirit of Yahweh came mightily upon him. And Samson tore the lion as he would have torn a kid with nothing in his hand. So when we ask the question, how did the spirit of Yahweh move Samson? This is one way, and that's not a sin. You know, you can kill a lion if it's attacking you. So that's not a problem. But he did not tell his parents what he had done. Afterwards, he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson very much. Eventually, he returned to take her in marriage, but he detoured to see the body of the dead lion. A swarm of bees and honey was in the body of the lion, in the dead body of the lion. So he took some of it in his hands and ate it. Then he continued on his journey and sought for his parents. And he gave some honey to them, and they ate it, but he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the dead body of the lion. So why is this stupid decision number two? He wasn't supposed to touch anything dead unclean. Exactly. Exactly. So Leviticus chapter 11, if you want to read that, instructs Israelites not to eat anything that touches something unclean. We shouldn't eat anything unclean, but we also shouldn't eat anything that touches anything unclean. So that was stupid decision number two. Not only did Samson sin, but he also led his parents to sin. He deceived them. He didn't tell them what he had done. It's like, here's some honey. They don't know where the honey came from, but he gave them the honey as well. So it's like a double sin. All right, stupid decision number three. This is in Judges chapter 14, verses 10 through 20. Judges chapter 14, verses 10 through 20. Later on, when his father went down to visit the woman, Samson threw a party there, since young men customarily did this. When the Philistines saw him, they brought 30 companions to accompany him. Samson told them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you can solve it during the 7-day feast, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 formal garments." That's because there were 30 companions. "But if you don't solve it, then you'll give me 30 linen garments and 30 formal garments." They responded, "Tell us your riddle and we'll solve it." So he told them, "From the eater came something edible." So from the eater came something edible, something that eats something. You can get something edible out of it. From the strong came something sweet, something that's strong. You can pull something sweet out of it. For 3 days, they couldn't solve the riddle. The next day, they told Samson's wife, "Coax your husband to explain the riddle, or we'll set fire to your father's house." Now, that's pretty extreme. You better tell us what's going on, or we're going to burn your house down. Okay. Now, what do you think this Philistine woman did when these Philistines came to her? All right. So it says, "You've invited us here to make us paupers, haven't you?" They're trying to intimidate her. It's a bully. All right. Continuing on, verse 16. "So Samson's wife cried in front of Samson and accused him. 'You only hate me. You don't love me. You told the riddle to my relatives, but you haven't told the solution to me.' Samson responded, 'Look, I haven't even told my parents, so why should I tell you?' But she kept on crying in front of him for the entire 7 days of the wedding party. Every husband knows that his wife can do the same thing. Keep on bugging him for 7 days. Eventually, he's going to give in. Although my wife has never done that. She's never, ever done that. She did it last week up until today. Still going on. So on the 7th day, he told the solution to her because she nagged him. And then she told the solution to her relatives. Duh. So no, I don't think he had the spirit of wisdom. That's not how Yahweh moved him. Then the men of the city answered him just before sunset on the seventh day. What's sweeter than honey? What's stronger than lions? And Samson responded, if you hadn't plowed with my heifer, whoa, man. Okay. If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have solved my riddle. Thanks, Samson, for calling your wife a heifer. It is. It's a heifer, yeah. So, stupid decision number 3. Samson was married to a Philistine. They were feasting with the Philistines. What did he expect? So it was a stupid decision because he gave her the riddle. And then she gave the riddle to those people who threatened to burn down the house. So it was like, don't give all your secrets to somebody that you believe is a heifer.
That's the other same problem.
I know, it's calling her a heifer. I know, really. You notice how all the women really spoke up there. Yeah, that was real. You don't view your wife that way. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So continue on, verses 19 and 20. Then the spirit of Yahweh rushed upon Samson, and he went down to Ashkelon, killed 30 men out of the lion, which is interesting, and took their garments, came something sweet, and then gave the garments to those who had told him the solution to the riddle. So he kind of turned the tables on them and said, yeah, I'll take something out of something strong, the lion, and I'm going to bring something sweet, and that's 30 garments. He remained furious, primarily at his wife, and left for his father's house. Therefore, Samson's wife was given to the best man at his wedding. Ooh, that's some ugly stuff. Ooh. But you can just imagine Samson storming off. You know, this heifer, leave her behind. He goes off to his father's house like a spoiled brat. And it's like, okay, Samson, you're gone. I'm going to give your wife to the best man at his wedding. So Samson's sin included all 3 of the big 3. Who knows what the big 3 sins are? Can you name them? Okay, yes.
The lust of the eyes.
Yep.
The lust of the flesh.
Yep.
And the pride of life.
And the pride of life. Those are the 3 big. And that's in 1 John chapter 2, verse 16. Samson's sin included all 3 of the big 3. And no, I do not preview my messages with my wife, so she knows all the answers. She's not planted. She just figured it out. Okay, so lust of the eyes for the Philistine woman, lust of the flesh for the Philistine woman, pride of life against the Philistine woman. Nevertheless, Yahweh used an ordinary man to do an extraordinary thing. However, the grace of God does not give us a license to sin. So he's about to do something extraordinary, but that doesn't mean that he can sin. All right, and we're going to see that coming up. So stupid decision number 4. This is in Judges chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. Judges chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. In the days of wheat harvest, Samson returned to Timnath to visit his wife, and he brought along a young goat. He reasoned, I will go into my wife in the room, and all the kids are going. So y'all know what that means, right? I will go into my wife in the room. But her father would not allow him to go in, saying, I truly thought that you utterly hated her, and I gave her to your best man. Is not her younger sister fairer than she is? She's ugly anyway, so why don't you take the more beautiful one? Please let her younger sister be for you instead of her. Samson angrily declared. So it sounds like Samson has some anger management issues as well. He kind of acts before he thinks. Again, he allows his spirit to move him before the spirit of Yahweh moves him. So Samson angrily declared, now I shall become more blameless than the Philistines, though I do harm to them. That was his own judgment. Watch what's about to happen. He's saying, now I shall be more blameless than the Philistines. Let me ask you the question now. Who was he mad at? Or who could he have justifiably, if you can call it that, been mad at? The father for giving away his wife to the best man. That's one person, right? He could have justifiably been mad at his wife for betraying him and giving the riddle away. That's two people. So notice what happens though. He's thinking, now I shall be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do no harm to them. But verse 4, therefore Samson went and caught 300 foxes and tied pairs together by their tails and put a firebrand between the two tails. Then he set the brands on fire and loosed the foxes to burn up both the shocks, excuse me, the standing grain, the vineyards, and the olive trees of the Philistines. What's that about? I mean, he's taking like vengeance on the whole village, the whole population who's done nothing to them. Doesn't that sound like what's going on today with Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine? This is wicked, actually, what he's doing, but he's not finished yet. Samson could have justly avenged himself against his father-in-law, but taking it out on all the Philistines made him just as guilty as them. Still, Yahweh used Samson because God can use even our stupid decisions. So verses, still stupid decision number 4, but now we're in verse 6 of Judges chapter 15. After investigating the matter, the Philistines concluded that Samson had done this because his father-in-law had taken Samson's wife and given her to Samson's best man. They figured it out. Consequently, the Philistines came up and burned Samson's wife and her father. Whew, this is getting worse and worse. So now they burned both of them because you're the ones who caused Samson to come and burn up our whole village. So now we're going to burn you up. And Samson's stupid decision caused both of them to be killed. As a result, Samson said to them, though you have done this, yet I will be avenged of you. And after that, I will stop. So he struck them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. Then he went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock at Etam. He had no justification for doing that, none whatsoever. If there was any judgment to be meted out, it should have been against his father-in-law and against his wife, and he should have left the people alone. He didn't. The Philistines already took out judgment on his father-in-law and his wife. That should have settled the matter. But Samson goes even further and says, I'm going to kill a whole bunch of you for no reason, just because he's impetuous. Just because he is Samson, he's a bully and he can whoop people's butt. So all Samson did, he's like Simpson, the Simpsons. So all Samson did was set himself up for retaliation. One bad decision snowballed into many bad decisions. The Philistines went up and encamped. This is in verse 9. The Philistines went up and encamped in Lehi, Judah. In response, the men of Judah asked, why have you come up against us? They answered, we have come up to bind Satan, to do him as he has done to us. Then 3,000 of the men of Judah went to the cleft of the rock at Edom and asked Samson, don't you know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us? Samson responded, as they have done to me, so I've done to them, which is not true. Then they responded, we have come to bind you so that we may deliver you into the hands of the Philistines. Then Samson replied, swear to me that you will not fall upon me yourselves. And they replied, we won't kill you, but we will tie you up and deliver you into the hands of the Philistines. So they bound him with 2 new cords and brought him down from the rock. By this time, Samson's impetuousness had ticked off just about everyone. I mean, sometimes you have people like that. I don't know if you know anybody. In my mind, I'm thinking about somebody right now. They enter into the room and there's fire all over the place because they're, so inflammable. They want to get in your face, beat you up, curse you out, stomp on you, everything else. They just cause so much division and trouble. Well, Samson was like this, couldn't keep control of his emotions. And he ticked off just about everyone. But Yahweh, in his infinite mercy and grace, did intervene. Always we see that we're not finished. God's not finished with us yet. We need to empty ourselves. But he's not finished with us yet. We're yet unfinished. Now, verses 14 through 20. Samson came to Lehi, and the Philistines shouted against him. Then the Spirit of Yahweh came mightily upon him, and the cords on his arms became as flax that has been burned with fire, and his bands loosed from off his hands. He found a new jawbone of an ass and used it to kill 1,000 men. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Samson proclaimed, with the jawbone of an ass, I've killed 1,000 men. After he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone and called that place Hill of the Jawbone. The fight made him very thirsty, and he prayed to Yahweh. And this is the first time we ever see Samson praying. We don't know, and I'm not saying he never prayed before this, but this is the first recorded prayer. So the fight made him very thirsty, and he prayed to Yahweh, saying, you have given this great deliverance into the hand of your servant. Shall I now die with thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? So, as Brother Tim mentioned, one of the things that God was moving Samson to do was to be a deliverer, another judge over Israel. And so though Samson did a lot of wicked things, God still was in the process of using him. Now, God's grace does not mean that we should sin. I hope nobody leaves out here and says, well, there's somebody that I don't like, and I'm going to go and punch him in the face. And then I'm going to repent and ask God to still use me. Don't do that. That's not what we're saying. We are saying that sometimes, like if somebody cuts you off and you're in traffic and you happen to let out a word you shouldn't by mistake, that God is not going to just blast you out of the car, okay, just because you did that. It's not a license to sin, but God knows that we slip up sometime because we're not totally empty of ourselves and totally filled with him. And that's a process that we got to work on over and over again. We're unfinished, but don't give up. God's not through with us. You remember the words of the song, he's making me into a masterpiece. Okay. So at least where it says back here in verse 14, then the Spirit of Yahweh came mightily upon him. Yahweh was going to use him to begin to deliver Israel out of the hands of the Philistines, despite the fact that Samson made stupid decisions. Okay. So Yahweh, in verse 19, Yahweh cut open a hollow place and water came forth. Samson drank and his mind and body were revived. Therefore, its name is called Fountain of the Praying One. And Samson judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. So he judged them. It doesn't mean that he delivered them, at least not yet. So Yahweh, in his infinite mercy, didn't allow Samson to die. Yahweh, in his infinite grace, did allow Samson to kill over 1,000 Philistines. And who knows the difference between mercy and grace? Because those can be a little bit confusing. But what's the difference between mercy and grace? Okay, Barbara.
Mercy could mean that you were guilty of it, you had mercy on it.
Exactly.
And grace. Grace is that he overlooked it or whatever.
Right. Yep, exactly. So we like to say that mercy is you don't get
What you deserve.
what you do deserve. And grace is you do get what you don't deserve. Right. So mercy is you don't get what you do deserve. Grace is you do get what you don't deserve. So Yahweh, in his infinite mercy, didn't allow Samson to die. But for all of his sins, he could have allowed him to die, just like all of us. But thanks be to God, he is so merciful. Yahweh, in his infinite grace, did allow Samson to kill over 1,000 Philistines. And, you know, a lot of these stories written for our admonition, they are a type of sin, the Philistines, not to say anything pejorative against them, but they're a type of sin in scripture. And we have sins. So our Heavenly Father wants us to destroy all sin from our lives. And this is what the story is really to teach us, is that we have to be overcomers, and eventually we have to get all sin out of our lives, to kill every sin. In this case is 1,000 sins that he's killed so far. Okay, so stupid decision number 5. Stupid decision number 5, Judges chapter 16, 1-3. Samson went to Gaza, and I have that highlighted for a reason. Samson went to Gaza. He met a harlot there and slept with her. Man, what's going on with Samson? He got a little issue. All right, so the Gazites were told that Samson had come there, so they surrounded him and quickly laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, saying, "When the light of the morning comes, we shall kill him." But Samson arose and departed at midnight, taking hold of the leaves of the gate of the city and the 2 posts, and picked them up with the bar and put them on his shoulders and carried them up to the top of the hill that is before Hebron. Samson had some serious strength. This reminds me of when I was about 15 or 16. I had that kind of strength. It's waned a little bit. But yeah. I couldn't take, the gate, but I could take the leaves that fell on the gate and bring it up. Yeah. But anyway, so remember this part. And anybody that doesn't know these 2 guys, you're not seeing things. You're not seeing things. Good afternoon. Yeah, when I first saw them, I said, man, I know I have cataracts, but that's pretty bad. Okay, so he was supposed to flee fornication, wasn't he? And yet he goes and sleeps with a harlot. He was supposed to make no provision for the flesh. And what that really means is, if we have a problem, and he obviously had a problem with women just having this sexual urge, that he needed some sexual healing, and that's what he went after. That's what he was after, and that's what he did. And but the idea is, listen, if you have a problem, then don't watch movies that stimulate you in that way. That's what it means. No, don't make any provision for the flesh. If you have that kind of problem, don't invite women into your office and close the door. Leave the door open, or invite somebody else to come into the office with you so you're not tempted to do these crazy things. So don't make provisions for something to happen, because it's a lot easier just to avoid the stuff in the first place. But if you know you have a weakness, don't make provisions for the flesh, make provisions for the spirit. Use the Spirit of God. Let it move you to do the right thing. Okay, so now, obviously his stupid decision number 5 is to sleep with a harlot, commit fornication. So to the place, which is Gaza, where Samson had willingly journeyed, he later was unwillingly forced to return. He thinks that he's doing something, but God wants him to remember what he did. Okay? And often in our lives, when we do something, our Father will also remind us. It's just like a loving parent, right? And so our daughter had her 44th birthday this past Monday, and we celebrated that. And that's amazing that we have a daughter 44 years old. But yes, it just blows my mind. But so knowing that our Father will always remind us of different things, that came up at the birthday party, that I was like, I don't really remember ever spanking her. And then our daughter said, oh yeah, you'd spank me, but you would talk for an hour beforehand explaining why I'm going to spank you. Of course, everybody laughed because everybody knows I'm somewhat shy and I don't really express myself so much. So it's hard to believe that. But yes. So it's like I reminded her, obviously, why I was about to spank her. Well, that's what our Heavenly Father does. He reminds us of why he's going to spank us. So keep this in mind. He went to Gaza, full of testosterone, slept with this harlot, picked up these big gates and the posts and bore them on the shoulders. Yeah, I got everything going on. Nobody can stop me. But to that same place where he had willingly journeyed, he later was unwillingly forced to return because God was going to give him a spanking. And he wanted to talk to him beforehand to let him know why he was giving him a spanking. So at a place where he had triumphantly left in a show of strength, he would later return defeated in a show of weakness. So stupid decision number 6. Stupid decision number 6. This is in Judges chapter 16, verse 4. Sometime later, Samson loved a woman in the valley of Sorek. Her name was Delilah. Samson is something else. He's got a serious problem that he still had not repented of. It just took a long time. So first it's a Philistine, uncircumcised Philistine woman, then it's harlot, then it's another Philistine woman. Her name is Delilah. She's obviously another uncircumcised person. So lust was obviously a sin that so easily tripped up Samson during his race. And God says, don't let sin so easily trip us up. But this is one that obviously tripped him up. Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh. He's a big dude, strong, handsome, pride of life. I can have any woman I want. Nobody's going to resist me. We have to change our training regimen to overcome the hurdles. So if this is a hurdle that we constantly trip over, we have to change our training regimen to overcome the hurdles. Now, who knows that I used to train Gail Devers for the Olympics? Does anybody know that? Well, good, because I didn't know that either. You were believing me, but that's not true. I never trained her. In fact, I never even ran hurdles because I was scared of tripping over and busting my face. So that's what God says, is in Romans 12, it says we have to grow by the renewing of our minds, change our training regimen. Whatever we're doing, think in our lives, what is the sin that keeps coming up in my life? Why am I constantly facing the same thing and failing? Obviously, if we do the same thing over and over again, we're going to get the same results. So we have to change our training regimen. And the first thing it starts with is praying and asking our Father, please take this away from me. And if it takes you 3 or 4 years of training, don't give up, okay? Do not give up. If you have a particular problem and you pray about it and you go 2 weeks without committing that same sin. And maybe, let's say maybe it's pornography, looking at wrong pictures. And you go 2 weeks without doing it. And then, you turn to like Huffington Post, which is a news source, but they have all these crazy pictures and you're drawn away of your own lust. And you look at one of these pornographic pictures and you say, oh, I thought I'd overcome that. Go back and pray again. Just pray some more, fall to your knees. Now it's 2 months that you haven't done it. And you see something in Jet magazine. I think they still publish Jet magazine. And you know not to turn to the center page because there's the centerfold. Just read the other stories. Don't turn but you turn to the center page. Look at the centerfold. All right, so then you go back and you're praying, you're fasting, and because you've added fasting because you're changing your regimen. Prayer didn't work by itself, so now you're changing your regimen and you're fasting. Now you go a full year and then you sin again. So now you change your regimen again and you say, I need an accountability partner. Please pray with me and please call me periodically and ask me how I'm doing. Because if I have to answer to somebody, maybe I don't want to embarrass myself when I give the answer. And then I don't want to compound my problem by having to lie to that person. So whatever we need to do, change our training regimen in order to overcome the hurdles. Samson had a serious problem with lust. So then we will win the gold medal because God says we have to run the race. And when we run the race the right way, there's a crown of righteousness laid up for us. That's in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 18. So again, his stupid decision is getting hooked up with another uncircumcised Philistine woman, letting his lusts run rampant. So that's stupid decision number 6. Stupid decision number 7. This is Judges chapter 16, verses 5 through 9. Judges chapter 16, verses 5 through 9 for stupid decision number 7. The lords of the Philistines came up to her, which is Delilah, and pleaded, lure him and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may prevail against him, so that we may bind him for affliction. Each one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, the same situation that he faced before with his first Philistine wife, or girlfriend, whatever, she was a wife. I don't know if this is his wife or girlfriend. I'm not sure if the story tells it, but don't you think Samson should have thought, I was married to a Philistine before. She betrayed me. We're still here in the Philistine territory, and I'm married to another Philistine woman. They hate my guts. Duh, maybe she's going to do the same thing. So he did not have the gift of wisdom, that's for sure. So please tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you may be bound to afflict you. Samson replied, if they bind me with 7 green cords that were never dry, then I shall be weak and be as other men. So first of all, that's a lie. We could count that one, but so verse 8, therefore the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green cords which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now he must have been a real sound sleeper too. There's a lot of people that bind him like that. At the prescribed time, she called to Samson. Now this is so embarrassing. Your wife is trying to get you killed. The Philistines are upon you. But he broke the cords just as a strand of straw snaps when it touches fire. Therefore, his strength was not discovered. We don't know Samson and Delilah were married, but we do know that Samson should have suspected that a Philistine woman living in Philistia would eventually find a way to betray him. So stupid decision number 7 is telling her a way that could get him killed. Bind me with 7 green cords. And that's what she did, and called then upon the Philistines to kill him. And he awoke because she said, they're upon you. And she thought that he was really going to be weak and that they would be able to kill him. That's like Samson. Okay, I got it now, right? Samson's got it now, doesn't he? He's figured it out, doesn't he? No? You don't think he's figured it out? Well, let's see the rest of the story. But that stupid decision number 7 is telling her about 7 green cords and putting his life at risk. Stupid decision number 8. This is in Judges chapter 16, verses 10 through 12. Stupid decision number 8. Judges chapter 16, verses 10 through 12. Delilah scolded Samson, saying, you have mocked me and told me lies. Same thing his other Philistine wife said. Now please tell me with what you may be bound. And he said to her, Samson, come on. If they bind me fast with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall be weak and be as other men. So what do you think Delilah did? Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson, you idiot. Oh man, I'm thinking of another phrase, but I won't utter that one. All right, so again, the ambush was sitting for him in the inner room, but he broke the ropes from off his arms, like as if they were simply a thread. Delilah now has 2 strikes against her, but Samson is obviously slow of mind. He is big, but that's about all he has going on for him. He's got no muscle in his head, in his brain. So this is stupid decision number 8, putting his life at risk a second time by talking about, you can bind me with new ropes that have never been used. The first one was with 7 green cords, just tie me together. So she's got 2 strikes against her. In baseball, somebody gets 3 strikes. You know, they throw the ball at you, you swing, you miss it, Strike one, they throw the ball, you miss it, or else you do a foul ball. That's 2 strikes. If you get one more strike, you're out. So the pitch comes, you miss it, and you strike out. Okay, so do we think that Delilah is going to miss for a 3rd time? Or do you think she's going to hit a home run? Okay, let's see what happens. So stupid decision number 9. Stupid decision number 9. This is in Judges chapter 16, verses 13 through 14. Judges chapter 16, verses 13 through 14. Delilah complained to Samson, "You have mocked me twice by telling me lies. Tell me how you can be bound. Stop fooling around with me." And then Samson lied a 3rd time, saying, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with pins, then I shall be as other men." So this is actually the 3rd time that he told a lie and put his life at risk with a woman who was obviously trying to get him killed. In verse 14, so he fastened his locks with some pins, and they yelled to him, and she yelled to him. So she fastened his locks with some pins and yelled to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson," always anticipating that this was the truth and that he would die, not that he would escape. Then he awakened out of the sleep and pulled out the pins. So Delilah has 3 strikes against her now, tried to kill him 3 times, and therefore should have been out. Get out of here, woman. You struck out, sit down. Go sit down in the dugout. The game is over for you. But Samson is obviously, and I'm going to emphasize this, slow of mind. He's really slow of mind. It's like, dude, how dumb can you be? All right. So stupid decision number 10. Judges chapter 16, verse 15. Stupid decision number 10. Judges chapter 16, verse 15. Frustratingly, Delilah said to Samson, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? How can you say you love me when you're trying to kill me, woman? What are you talking about?" So Delilah, "You've mocked me 3 times and haven't told me the secret to your strength." Well, you're trying to kill me. So deceitfully, Delilah queried Samson, "How can you say I love you when your heart isn't with me?" It was Delilah whose heart was not with Samson. Her heart was with herself and her people. She pretended the greatest kindness, even when she designed the greatest mischief. And that can be so true. Of course, Satan, the devil, is the one who offers us, entices us. Take of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You're not going to die. You're going to be like God, knowing what's good and evil. And God is withholding something from you. That's the kind of thing Satan does, is he offers us stuff that looks good, but only designs mischief, when all we have to do is take of the tree of life. What should have been Samson's reaction to this? Flee. That's right. Get out of there. So Judges chapter 16, verses 16 through 18. Eventually, because she day after day distressed him with her urgent demands, his soul was grieved to death. Again, he gave in. He had several weaknesses: a woman, lusting after a woman in the first place, revealing secrets to people so he could get himself killed, and then allowing people to nag him enough where he didn't have the strength to say no. So in verse 17, and he told her all his heart and said to her, "A razor shall not come on my hair, for I am a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I will become weak like normal men." When Delilah perceived that he finally told her the truth, she called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come, for he showed me all his heart." Then they paid her off with silver. That's all she was interested in. In verse 19, Judges 16, verse 19. So Delilah lulled Samson to sleep upon her knees. Then she called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his head. As a result of her deviousness, his strength left him. And here's a thought for us. When we sleep, our spiritual enemies do not. Satan is as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. We always need to be on our guard. If we sleep in the lap of our lusts, we shall certainly wake in the hands of the devil. And that's exactly what happened to Samson. He was sleeping in the lap of his lust toward Delilah, so he awakened in the hands of the devil. She was devilish because she just wanted to have him killed. And Satan ruins people by rocking them to sleep and then robbing them of their strength, which leads to their captivity. And again, Satan is always trying to rock us to sleep, and then he robs us of our strength, and that leads to captivity, the same exact thing that happened to Samson. So in verse 20, triumphantly, Delilah yelled, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson, and this time you will not get away, you." Then he awoke out of his sleep and said, "I'll go out like before and shake myself free." Hey, no big deal. You remember? I'll just brush it off. No big deal. Just like before. I'll go out like before and shake myself free. But he did not realize that Yahweh had departed from him. Ooh, that's some serious stuff. We never, ever want to be in that situation. I'm telling you, if we have some sins that so easily beset us, cry out over and over again. So, though or through Samson, we see the fatal consequences of obtaining security and self-reliance. He relied on his own strength, but actually a strength that God gave him, but he thought it was his own strength. So I can keep on sinning, I can keep on doing stupid stuff, no matter what it is, just brush it off. Everything's going to work out. But God will spank us sometimes. So he said, just like before, I will shake myself free. Now, God's love is always there for us. He just wants to spank us. He never wants to leave or forsake us. So is Samson's self-reliance the reason why Samson didn't know that Yahweh had departed from him? What would you say to that? Do you think that his self-reliance is the reason why he didn't know that Yahweh had departed from him? Because it says in verse 20, he didn't realize that Yahweh had departed from him. I would say that's the cause. He instead of being empty of himself, like the first song that we sang, "Empty Me," he was full of himself. And when you're full of yourself, you can't be full of Yahweh at the same time. And Yahweh said, if you want to fill up your house and kick me out, hey, I'm going. I've tried. But God is always merciful. So why did Yahweh choose to depart from Samson? Well, we know why. So the review of Samson's 10 stupid decisions. He married a Philistine woman. That's number one. He ate honey from a carcass of a lion, which is an unclean animal. He revealed the riddle's meaning to his Philistine wife. That's number three. Number four, he unjustly killed innocent Philistines. He could have said, I'll take vengeance on my father-in-law and on my wife, but he killed people who were innocent. He slept with a harlot. He entered into a love-lust relationship with Delilah, another uncircumcised Philistine woman. He trusted Delilah with his life, bind with 7 green cords. Number 8, he trusted Delilah with his life, bind me with new ropes never before used. Number 9, he trusted Delilah with his life, weave the 7 locks of my head with pins. And number 10, he trusted Delilah with his life. Don't cut off my hair because I'm a Nazarene. 10 stupid decisions. And do you remember what previously happened with Samson at Gaza when he made stupid decision number 5? And this is stupid decision number 5. That's when Samson went to Gaza and he took the gates and the post and all that kind of stuff. This is as he was going to find this harlot woman. So we already said he was supposed to flee fornication. He was supposed to make no provision for the flesh. Remember, we said to the place where Samson had unwillingly journeyed, he later was unwillingly forced to return. And at a place where he had triumphantly left in a show of strength, he would later return defeated in a show of weakness. So y'all remember that, right? Okay, so let's see what happens. This is in Judges chapter 16, verses 21. Judges chapter 16, verse 21. So knowing Samson's weakness, the Philistines captured him, put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, where they bound him with fetters of brass. There Samson labored in the prison house. Isn't that a perfect, perfect punishment or spanking from a loving father? What was his main problem? Or one of them? Lust of the eyes. So what did a loving father do? He took out his eyes. That's not going to be a problem anymore. Also, what was another problem that he had? His strength. He became vain and puffed up in his strength. So what happens? His strength was taken away. And at this ultimate place where he was going after a woman in lust and carried these big old brass gates, it says he was bound with fetters of brass. Everything to remind him, Samson, you need to turn your life around. The eyes that were used to lust after women were put out through the betrayal of a woman. To the place where Samson had willingly journeyed, he now was unwillingly forced to return at Gaza. At a place where he had triumphantly left in a show of strength, he now returns defeated in a show of weakness. They paraded him around. Now that the Philistines had blinded him, he had time to remember how his own lust had blinded him to the fact that he needed to worship God with all his strength, might, and soul, and love his neighbor as himself, and not lust. So the best preservative of the eyes is to turn them away from beholding vanity. And Yahweh departed from Samson in order to slap some sense into him. That's what it was. He just departed and said, I'm going to slap you in your face or slap you on your bottom so that you can get some sense knocked into you. Okay, so the slap in the face. Judges chapter 16, verses 22 through 25. All right, so he's slapping Samson in the face to get his attention, but that's because Samson had done so many things that caused Elohim to be slapped in the face of these pagan people. So that's another thing that Yahweh was doing. I'm going to slap you in your face because you slapped me in the face by doing all these sinful things in front of these pagan people. So in Judges chapter 16, verses 22 through 25, eventually the hair of Samson's head began to grow again after he had been shaven. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered in order to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their Elohim, with a little e, and to rejoice, saying, our God, with a little g, has delivered our enemy Samson into our hand. When the people saw Samson, they praised their Elohim, saying, our God has delivered our enemy, the destroyer of our country, the one who killed many of us, into our hand. In their rejoicing, they called for Samson to be made into a sport for them. Subsequently, they brought him out of the prison house, made sport of him, and set him between the temple's pillars. Solomon, you made a mockery of me. Samson, right, Samson, thank you. You made a mockery of me in front of these people. I'm going to now let them make a mockery of you. So only so you can get the lesson. It's not that I hate you. This chastisement is because I love you. It doesn't seem pleasant. No chastisement seems pleasant for the moment, but it should yield the peaceable fruit of righteousness, as it says, I think, in Hebrews 12. So the Philistines gave praise to their false god Dagon, which was a slap in the face to the one true God, Yahweh. So now, after his 10 stupid decisions and after getting a spanking, what happens? He got the message. He finally learned. And that might be our situation. So please, please never give up on yourself, and certainly never give up on God, okay? We might trip up over and over and over again, and over and over again. But never give up, because God's not done with us yet, okay? So he made one wise decision after getting his spanking. This is in Judges chapter 16, verses 26 through 30. Judges chapter 16, verses 26 through 30. And here it says, Samson asked the lad who held him by the hand, allow me to feel the pillars upon which the house stands, so that I may lean upon them. The temple was full of about 3,000 people, including all the lords of the Philistines. Then Samson prayed to Yahweh. Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because that's what we have to do. And this is his prayer. Yahweh, Yahweh, remember me and strengthen me, I pray you, only this once, O Elohim, so that I may be avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. As Samson took hold of the 2 pillars, he said, let me die with the Philistines. And then he bowed himself mightily, and the house fell upon the lords and all the people in it. So the dead whom Samson killed at his death were more than those he killed in his life. So we have only 2 recorded instances of Samson praying, and this one was at the end of his life of stupid decisions. But this one wise decision to repent and ask that he become a sacrifice to deliver Israel from the Philistines was his best decision. Prayer is the most powerful weapon we have because we tap into the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth. And Yahweh honored Samson's prayer in a wonderful way. Now I'm going to skip some of this because we are just about out of time. So let me go forward. Will you let me go forward? Thank you. So Samson, a sacrifice to Elohim. In Judges 13, verses 17 through 20, this is going back in the story, but it's interesting in conclusion. So in Judges chapter 13, verses 17 through 20, Manoah had asked the angel of Yahweh when he came to them initially and promised that you're going to have a son. Manoah asked the angel at that point, what is your name, so that when your word comes to pass about Samson being this great person because he's a Nazarite, we want to honor you. And the angel of Yahweh responded, why do you ask for my name? For it is wonderful. And Manoah took the young goat with the meal offering and offered them on the rock to Yahweh. And Yahweh did something wonderful as Manoah and his wife were watching. For it came about when the flame went up from off the altar toward heaven, that the angel of Yahweh ascended in the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife were looking on, and they fell on their faces to the ground. Okay, I have to stop. All right, so Samson, in offering himself up as a burnt sacrifice, holy in God's service, is a fulfillment of this right here. Because the last scripture we read says that he did something wonderful, right? That he did something wonderful. And this scripture is talking about that event. God knew that Samson would make stupid decisions, but he knew that after he chastised him, he would make a wise decision. He used Samson despite some of his flaws. And right at the end, he used Samson to break the yoke of the Philistines from off of the Israelites. So that was God's doing. And this wonderful thing of taking a young goat with the meal offering and offering them up on the rock to Yahweh was symbolic of saying that is the same thing that's going to happen to your son, Samson. He will be offered up upon this rock. And when the flame goes up, I'm going to go up, ascending to heaven, because I am well pleased with what happened. So Samson, a lot of people think, well, he committed suicide. Is it? Well, we read at the beginning, Mr. Fan Beggy read, he's one of the people of faith. And this was an act of faith to sacrifice his life, because he was a warrior, and it's fine to be in battle to defeat the enemy. This is a way, justifiably, that he was able to defeat his enemies by giving himself as a burnt offering. So a beautiful end to the story. Okay, I think that's it for now. So thank you for your attention. Just remember that God can use even stupid Christians. If you feel like you're in that boat of being a stupid Christian, well, don't worry. All of us, God is called the weak of the world. Some of us, it takes longer to grow than others. That's okay. I've been walking with the Lord for 43 years now, and it probably seems like it's only 43 seconds to God, because I still have so much to learn and grow. I still make so many mistakes, but I keep praying and I keep praying. God, do something wonderful through me. And if it needs to be where I am a burnt offering then let it be so. But I hope that it's going to be, I can be a living sacrifice every single day.